My name is Marcello Veiga. I'm associate professor at the Norman B. Keevil Institute of Mining Engineering at University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. I've been working with mercury pollution for the last 30 years, and I was the manager of the United Nations Global Mercury Project from 2005 to 2008.
This subject, artisanal gold mining, seems to have great momentum now with lots of publications in newspapers, TV shows, and recently in the National Geographic magazine of January 2009. Why has this become a hot topic now?
Well, the level of poverty in the world is increasing. Since 1987, when we had 30% of people living below the poverty line of $1 per day, now we have about 16%. It's declining, but a lot of people are just looking for opportunities to get out of the poverty. It's pretty difficult for people living in rural communities just to make a living just with agriculture or farming when they don't have any infrastructure, they don't have irrigation. And then more people became miners because of just to get out of the poverty. So if you see the price of gold just increase in the last 6 years from $300 per ounce to almost $1,000 per ounce. So in other words, for 1 gram of gold, we have about $30. So a little ring like this, it'll cost about $120. It's 4 grams of gold. So to find 1 gram of gold is $30. It's so easy. So you can just pan for gold in a river and you can just find gold. And that's one of the reasons that are a lot of people, instead of just planting, instead of farming, they're becoming miners.
Why is there a large squad of people using mercury to extract gold? Isn't gold amalgamation an ancient technique no longer used by the mining industry?
In fact, mercury is not being used by the mining companies anymore. Most of the companies are using cyanide, which is less persistent in the environment than mercury. But mercury, it's easy to be used. It's just mixed with concentrate, and mercury traps the fine gold. Very easy, you don't request any complicated method. Second, mercury, it's easy to be found. It's very available in all the mining village and interior of the Amazon. It's easy to find. Third, mercury is cheap. 1 kilo of mercury can be bought with 1 gram of gold. So it's relatively cheap. And fourth, because mercury, dangers of mercury is not very well understood by the artisanal miners and in the communities. So they just use mercury and they are not aware of the dangers of mercury, and they just burn mercury everywhere. They burn in the kitchen, they burn close to the kids, they burn close to the woman, they burn everywhere.
How are these artisanal miners having access to such a large amount of mercury, about 1,000 tons per annum?
In fact, most of the developing countries, they don't produce mercury. Most of this mercury that it's accessible to artisanal miners come from developed countries like Japan, like US, and some European countries that have produced mercury like Spain. But in 2013, this is going to finish because in February 2009, the Obama administration signed an agreement that they're going to stop exporting or trading mercury to developing countries. The same happened with European countries that in 2011, they will not export mercury anymore. So most of this mercury is available because it entered the countries for dental use, but it's not for dental. So it's clear that mercury is being used now by artisanal mining. The use of mercury by artisanal mining represents 30% or 1/3 of the entire mercury used in the world. In a year, we have about 2,400 tons of mercury being used every year.
Do you believe that it is possible to replace the entire use of mercury with another simple technique that is less pollutant?
In the short term, no. I don't believe that it's possible to replace. Mercury, as I said, is very simple to be used and it's cheap. The most promising technique is cyanidation. But for artisanal miners to understand how to use cyanide, it's complicated. So cyanide is more fatal than mercury in the short term. I don't believe the artisanal miners can just get this education so fast. But I can see now a lot of people just replacing mercury with cyanide and just learning how to use cyanide, and this is resulting in a less environmental damage.
If the miners continue using mercury, how can they reduce the dramatic intoxication to their community and the huge rates of emission to the air and water?
Well, it's not easy to make the miners to be environmental conscious, but let's just pretend that this is the amalgam here with 60% of mercury and 40% of gold. So usually what most of the artisanal miners do, they just get this amalgam and put it in a bonfire and evaporates everything. Evaporates the mercury, and then they leave behind the gold. So one of the things they can do, we can just introduce retorts, a way for them to evaporate the mercury and recover the mercury. So we just put the mercury or the amalgam here in this small bowl. And we're going to use this big bowl here with a hole at the back. And then we just put this little bowl here inside of the big bowl. And then we cover this with a glass bowl. And this glass bowl here, we cover the small bowl. In this case here, the miners can see what's going on inside. And then they can put this in a bonfire, or in using a torch, and then it evaporates the mercury from the amalgam, and the amalgam is condensed in this inside of the bowl here, and then you can recover. So another way to do it is just to seal this part here with wet sand, and then no mercury is going to escape when they burn the amalgam. So they can recover amalgam, and this protects them to be exposed to the mercury vapor. Using this retort here, this retort is made of water pipes. This the amalgam, our amalgam again. We put the amalgam here, and then we close the retort. And put this retort in a bonfire, or just burn with a torch here. The mercury in the amalgam evaporates and condenses over here. And then the mercury drips back in a glass of water, and you can just recover the mercury. A simple procedure like this can save a lot of lives, and it can just avoid mercury going to the environment and be transformed into the most toxic form of mercury, which is methylmercury. Methylmercury is a transformation of the metallic mercury into a process that are a compound that accumulates in a fish. People living away from a mining operation can be intoxicated with a fish, with the methylmercury in a fish. So the simple procedure like this can save a lot of lives.
You have been the technical manager of one of the most important projects to reduce mercury emissions, the Global Mercury Project, sponsored and implemented by the UN in 6 countries, as this project ended in 2008. What can be done to keep the initiative alive and implement the lessons learned in all 70 other countries that are still facing the problems of mercury pollution from artisanal miners?
Well, we have probably in the world, in the 70 countries, we have probably 50 million artisanal gold miners involved with that. In the Global Mercury Project, we address probably 30,000 miners. So it's a tremendous effort just to bring education to 50 million artisanal miners worldwide. I believe that the participation of the governments of each one of the 70 countries facing the problem, it's quite important. So we have to get more involvement of the academics as well. We have to get more involvement of NGOs, just to bringing the message to the communities and the population affected by mercury pollution, just to stop these emissions. And you can just see that we have about 100 million people affected by mercury vapors. So because the mercury just spread in the cities, spread in the field, and then affect the health of these people. So it's very important just that the government and everybody understand why this is occurring, and then we can just promote more projects like that.
Some environmentalists have been arguing that we should not use gold since about 85% of gold is used for jewelry. Do you believe that this is a solution to resolve the environmental problem caused by artisanal miners worldwide?
I don't think this is a solution. Most of the gold produced in the world definitely is for jewelry. But in fact, so if you just ignore that 30% of the gold produced in the world is by artisanal mining, and this is sustaining 100 million people on the planet. So it's you cannot just tell that the use of gold for jewelry is a luxury. So I saw many of the campaigns led by NGOs, and even in the National Geographic in January 2009, I got the impression that the message was that we don't need gold. But in fact, a lot of gold, it's used to save money in difficult times. Just to give an example, most of the gold used in the world, it's used by India and by China and by Muslim countries. It's a way to count with the saving in the gold instead of putting the money in the banks. I think gold in jewelry should be promoted.